Hello, and welcome to this speedrun of Frogger Beyond. This speedrun takes 55 minutes and 8 seconds and is world record as of May 11th, 2024. Before we get too far into things, I would like to thank Locomash, or Livin' Like Loca, the only other speedrunner of this game. This is my first world record in this category, pretty much the only category that is run in this game. And we are about to start right off. Before the timer starts, we can spend as much time in the options as we want. But now, after Frogger spawns in, that is when the time begins. So, as you notice, there are very limited movement options for Frogger. Most of it is just him hopping around in the cardinal directions, up, down, left, or right. He also has a super hop, which is what he's using to jump between those logs right there, and a high jump. I suppose he has one other ability, that is to use his tongue to eat fireflies, or any other thing that I guess frogs like to eat. The high jump is extremely rarely useful. I think it is useful in only one boss, and if you are quick enough at reacting, you really don't need it. The super hop is quite a bit more useful. As we can see right now, it is useful for getting over those one space gaps, and 99% of the time we will be using the just regular hop. Just hopping around, feeling froggy. Since the movement in this game is so simple, Loca and I have been able to optimize this pretty quickly. Some of the most important parts of this game have to do with what are called cycles. As you notice in this Frogger game, there are enemies that constantly walk back and forth or through different patterns. There are also lily pads or other kind of platforms that move back and forth in a rhythmic fashion. So, it is pretty easy to figure out how many hops you can get in before this cycle, or say this lily pad right here. As long as we get on this lily pad, we should have roughly about the same time getting off the lily pad. So optimizing these cycles is one of the biggest keys to being successful in this game. Knowing which cycles are important and which cycles you can wait on to determine the true limiting factor. In this stage, there's this giant glowing grayish thing on the bottom right part of the screen. I lied a little bit. There are a few other abilities Frogger has. Some of these include the blue boot with wings, the little tongue there, Frogger's hungry, and the ghost ability. This ghost ability is the best item, in my opinion. It is what I spend all my coins on in this run. You can exchange all these yellow coins, which I have 99 of currently, into a shop, and you can buy these items. I don't even end up using the blue wing shoes or the eat the enemies item. Loca was a much bigger fan of these items and used some of them in that last level, the second rainforest map, and that helped him beat that last little log at the end, which saves him some time over me. But I just never got the hang of it and never practiced the timing on the quick boots. The ghost, on the other hand, we saw that in action. That let us bypass that giant spider. As I mentioned before, cycles are a huge part of this game, and because of that, this helps us bypass some of those very important cycles. It also helps us go through some sequence breaks. Speaking of sequence breaks, there are going to be a couple coming up in this third rainforest level. They involve deaths. There will be 5 intentional deaths in the next couple minutes. all of them, or these first two I suppose, will spawn Frogger back at this checkpoint he's about to hit. These little flags make sure Frogger gets spawned back there whenever he dies. So we are going to grab this key, which opens up part of the exit, and then die to quickly return. Otherwise, we'd have to take those pinkish purplish petals back up, which are much slower, and we've got the lives to spare. So then, we got the doors swing open, off the ledge, respawn, and we are through that level. Lickety split. The fourth level of every world is a boss level. I guess there was a tutorial level really quickly, which doesn't count as a rainforest level. But this level features a giant forest ape, somewhat like Donkey Kong. The goal is to spring these barrels right back at him. He's got to throw a bunch of them here. The sequence breaks come in with some of his attacks. Some of his attacks are to send a horde or a flood of these logs all at once. However, if you jump off the ledge, the attack will end and he will continue doing this attack you see right now. He throws three logs, and the last one will always be able to be thrown back at him. This boss takes 6 hits, and as you can see, that's our first one. The next deaths should happen after these next 2 hits. And other than that, these bosses are pretty simple, so I might not always be talking the whole time through the boss levels. You may notice that sometimes when I am moving quickly across those buttons, the traps don't activate. This is a peculiar little quirk with the game that if you jump past space quick enough, you might not fully activate buttons that are on the ground. Or maybe you'll activate a button and maybe a cutscene will play. This only really goes into account in, what is it, High Tech 2? Not in the RTA run we are seeing right now, but it will be in the time attack. And that is our first level done, about 8 minutes into the run. Speaking of which, I should probably talk about the story a little bit. This story has Frogger growing up. It's his birthday today, and so he has to go through some trials to prove he's an adult frog. Really quickly, diverging back into the gameplay, Loka is a madman, and I stopped like 3 times there, but he just runs through all those spikes and all those enemies one fell swoop. However, we both end up having a 40-second segment time because of that last little secret. So that's nice. There are a lot of little optimizations where it appears Loka's run is much quicker than mine, but due to some cycles, I'm still able to hold my footing. But yeah, there are, 7 different worlds, if you count the final world. I take that back. There are 8 worlds if you count the final world, which the final world only has 1 level. And Frogger must go through all 8 of these to prove that he is an adult frog. This is one of the first levels that I have actually added new strats into, which should show how well Loka has optimized this game before I even got here. One of the strange quirks of this game is that this game, and as well as many other Frogger games, are built off a grid system. So, you know, as we said before, you can hop forward, backwards, or up, down, left, and right. However, there are tons of moving platforms like these rocks here. There is a term called shit jumps, where there is a certain amount of I don't know how to say this, magnetization that Frogger has when jumping onto these, because you don't have to be too precise. They want to give you some leeway with where you jump on these moving platforms. So I found that in that stretch in the middle there, you're able to make a cycle due to these shit jumps. This magnetization of Frogger. But yeah, that was one of the first levels that I have gotten a better time attack time than Loka, and there aren't too many more. So, big props to him again. This is a tough level. I have lost many runs to this level, and one of the good parts is those little waves that jut out of the sides. Almost everything in this game is a cycle based off of when you start the level. So again, cycles are very important. However, these waves, they seem to show up at specific points. So if you lose a little bit of time at the beginning of the level, and there was that little stingray ride, whenever you get off that stingray, those water waves seem to appear at the same time relative to when you get off the stingray. Same thing with when you open those giant doors in those other water waves. Console players might be noticing some difference between this PC version and the console version already. For example, there is one of the scariest parts of my childhood playing this game is a snake that follows you through that section on console. However, on the PC mode, there seems to be a significantly less amount of enemies. And you'll see this like in the snowboarding mountain level and others. However, we are already on to our second boss. This is the octopus boss. To defeat it, there's these different walkways that show up, and you have to push those red buttons. You just kind of have to wait it out, and they will pop up randomly. A big part of these bosses that makes this game a little less fun is the bosses add a lot of randomness. Most of the non-boss levels, extremely consistent. Very little RNG. However, these bosses, they make things a little bit tricky. The RNG in this boss is once again where the platforms spawn. It takes 3 hits. The first hit, you'll have 3 options. The second hit, you'll only have 2 options. And the last hit, you'll only have 1. There are also 2 different attacks that this octopus can do. You've probably seen both of them. One of them right now is the one I really like the octopus to do. This one, he's moving a lot of his tentacles. That's the one I don't like to see. If he's got one of them up and just kind of hanging there, that is pretty nice. Once these platforms spawn in, he decides on his attack and does not change. The other attack was happening at the first hit. He waves his tentacles around sporadically. Maybe there is a pattern to this madness, but I have not noticed it so far. The pattern that we saw at the second hit is much easier. He just rotates around, and he has some of his tentacles up, some of them are on the ground. He doesn't swipe them up and down. This makes it much easier to get around his tentacles and to just run to the point. If you do die from the sporadic tentacles, that is a 30-second time loss, which is a very huge. It's very big. I'm narrowly able to get out of this because you do need to return to the platform. Tentacle, just enough time to get out of there. But we have made it through the water level, and now we are in the high-tech level. We are once again going to see some more of these. What are they? The ghost item. We're going to see some shenanigans with that. we kind of glossed over them while I was talking about the plot of the story in 2-1. But there's a spot there that you're supposed to do grab 2 keys, like in that 3rd Rainforest level. But we bypassed that by using the ghost power to go over some spikes. There are some roadblocks like this that are just things that kill Frogger that we can bypass with the ghost power-up. The time attack version of this level is at least a minute slower than this. I remember when I had pretty much only been doing time attack and converting those into runs. Loka came into my Twitch chat one time and he's like, "Hey, I know how you can save a minute for free." He's like, "Use the ghost power up here." I was like, "No way." But anyways, we go back to the shop. We get 3 more of these ghost power-ups. We have just enough money to get by. It is 240 coins, so 80 coins for a ghost, so that makes 3. And we're going to put another one to use right now. Just missed this cycle. But there's another one of those barriers that is just, you know, a hazard that we can walk right through with this ghost power-up. It's a little bit of a waste for the rest of the power-up as we are just sitting here waiting to fall, but it's well worth it. I did mention 3-2. This was the level where you could hop over a button. We skipped over that part with our ghost. So, again, we're just moving through here. Those fireflies, those, if you have not picked up already, those are our life count. We have kind of gotten to over route in lives. If and when I am to return to this game. Oops. Yeah. Live routing might be something we can tighten up a little bit. That was a common thing you see with speedrunners. A lot of the time they look away from the screen as soon as they finish a level. But the beginning of this level is really tricky. This level has also been a thorn in my side for many years. I kind of lose my cycle here and have to wait for these popcorn things to go around and around and around. But I made it through without dying, which there are no checkpoints up until that very end, so I would have had to go way back to the beginning, lose about 20 seconds, and that's essentially a reset. You do lose a little bit of time here, but that's not the important part. The end of this level is really unique and interesting because there are no enemies. There are no moving platforms that prevent you from advancing forward. So right here, there's just a bunch of falling platforms. Once you get on a platform, it has a timer, and it will fall down. So this is basically just a mash fest. See how fast you can get through this, which is really unique. It's kind of one of the only points in the game where there's such a long stretch of no cycles. The ends of levels tend to end up like this just because if there's no enemies, then between you and the end, well, you just kind of have to go as quickly as you can. But it's a really unique section. Very tough level. The ending's pretty unique. I enjoyed the end. I do not enjoy the beginning, but here we are. Finally back up to our next boss. We have this robot. I don't know if any of these bosses have names. I just call it the monkey, the octopus, the robot. We're going to find another robot in about 8 minutes or so. But this robot, he has a couple attacks. He has this zap attack, which he just does more and more of after each hit. And he has this missile attack. Pretty boring boss. This boss actually does not have any randomness to it. It is very static, very repeatable. He does, on the first hit, he does 1 lightning attack. On the second hit, he always does 2. On the third hit, he always does 4. And the last one, he always does 6. And then he always shoots 1 missile at each of these. These orange orbs are always on a cycle as well, which, you know, if you touch them, you die, reset. And there's these zappy things, which are also on a cycle. Everything's on a cycle here. There's no randomness. Should be able to get the same time every time. Another thing to note is during these boss levels, you might notice our items have disappeared. You are not allowed to use items on any of the boss fights. This would not help save time really in any of the bosses, but it would help with security. There's a certain boss that I have in mind that has been a big trouble that I'll bring up later when they show up, but I will not spoil it. If you played this game before and you finished it, you probably know which one I'm talking about. But until then, we will keep it a secret. But yeah, to avoid these lasers, you can just kind of walk back and forth. Very easy boss, very consistent. Boring, but consistent. Okay, I can live with that for a speedrun. Especially with all the other, with some of the other crazy bosses. And now we can just dance on the robot while he falls. After each of these bosses, there is a cutscene, but thankfully, all the cutscenes in this game are skippable by the tap of a button. Very convenient for speedrunners. Yeah. Mario Sunshine is a game that I have poured much more time into as a speed game than this, and that does not have skippable cutscenes. And let me tell you, the value of a skippable cutscene is immense. Believe it or not, those carts were the fastest cycle. That just kind of is what you have to deal with. Again, if you have played this game, you are probably terrified of what's about to come. This is a cart, kind of one-off mechanic. The momentum or the way that this cart speeds up and slows down makes it really difficult to time these jumps. However, with enough practice, anything's possible. It should be also noted, there are some ways to pick the different paths you go down. There are 3 forks in a path. The first one was at the very beginning. We want to go left. We can do that by, as soon as we begin seeing that fork in the path, we press left. As soon as we see our front wheels go on the fork, press left. We do this again right here. Again, fork in the path, press left. And the middle one, I always just like to jump over it because that will also guarantee you go down the left path. So we always go down the left. Left is always best. Otherwise, they take you up. You will lose a lot of time if you go down the wrong path. And there's more obstacles, it's longer, it's trickier. It's just always a good way to go. But yeah, after much practice, this is not as much trouble as it is casually. And we're able to get through with a time of 2 minutes, 5 seconds. This is kind of the only normal-ish level in the snow world. We start off with just some classic platforming. There are some nice little set pieces, like there is a little small avalanche that's about to follow us here, but we won't even see it because, well, we're speedrunning. We get this checkpoint just because we're going to wait on some enemies here anyways. Might as well be safe. I'm pretty sure Loka does not play as safe as I do here. He plays quite a bit more riskier. which is funny because I've done a lot more of my practice in the time attack format. I have not spent much time practicing with items in the story mode practice. And so, yeah, that's why I kind of haven't used the blue boots much, or the eat 'em up item. I have made sure to practice my ghost levels though. Yeah, these sections with all the moving platforms are always a little scary, especially with, as I've said before, there's a little magnetization that goes on. Sometimes Frogger just falls to his death. There's nothing you can do about it. Same thing with these snowballs. Sometimes they kind of shift into different paths. You might think the snowball's in a path to your left or right, but it kills you anyways. So I just like to jump over a lot of those just to be safe anyways. Another improvement that I have contributed to this game is with the snowboarding. I think I have improved the snowboarding section of this quite a bit. As you can see in the PC port, there are no enemies on this level. And so the way to go quick on the snowboard is just to pretty much jump as little as possible. So that's what I try to do. I try to start turns earlier. I tried to turn harder. I get an extra jump here that's not necessary, but it was important to be safe. Kind of shimmy around this little block here. And yeah, that is how small of the optimizations I've made as compared to all the other strats that Loca's made. So again, standing on the shoulders of a giant right now. We are about to fight another robot. I am not sure if they have names or if they have any lore relevance. There is a channel in the Frogger Speedrun Discord related to lore, and I have no idea anything that goes on inside. What I do know is this boss fight. This boss shoots missiles at you, and they can go at 2 different speeds. The missiles will go fast if you are further away from the missile, and they'll start to slow down once you get close. So we want to be as far away from the missiles as possible for them to move quicker. There are also 2 different patterns that these pillars can come and block these things we want to shove the missiles into. Thankfully, only that top left one gave us any issues, but it can be tricky sometimes. Once we have broken shield, we just need to direct a missile back at it, which we can do by standing directly below it and running to the right, because it will run to the right. So that was a quick boss fight, and we are already through the mountain world. Once we get through the mountain, we appear in the future. This section is extremely difficult on console. Specifically, I guess the console version that I played is the GameCube version. There's a lot of lag at the beginning, which makes it hard to be quick. Optimize those frames between hops and make sure you get past all those enemies. But yeah, this level is much easier on PC. If anyone were to get into this game, I would advise playing on the PC port. It is much easier. I have not experienced the PlayStation 2, or I guess I have experienced the Xbox version a long time ago. But speaking for the GameCube at least, moving around on the D-pad is not ideal. It is very tough. It is very tough to just make sure the controller is going the direction you want it to. Sometimes you'll press left, but you press a little too high on the D-pad and it will make you go up. Opposed to these keys on the keyboard, W, ASD. it's a little easier to make sure you're going up, down, left, or right. There are also a few different control options. You cannot just set your controls. But as you saw at the beginning, I am allowed to set the max amount of lives at the beginning, and I am also allowed to change my control type. So I went to control type C before time started. And yeah, this is kind of a neat classic Frogger, just bouncing around. Can't get too far left or too far right, otherwise there's a giant electric beam. I guess that's not classic Frogger, but just jumping across trucks and cars, trying to get to the end of the road. But now we're back to Frogger Beyond level design. This level is a pretty easy level compared to most. It's really easy to be consistent out. I guess I can't quite put my finger on it, but all the enemy movements are pretty simple. There's no crazy hard cycles with the moving platforms. And yeah, it's also a quick level. It's not a lot of movement you have to do. We are already reaching the end of it. The next level is kind of an auto scroller as well. So this future world is pretty, for top level at least, it is much easier to become consistent at, especially if you're on PC, than most worlds. This beginning part is not an auto scroller. We have to jump past this guy and then run through this barrage of enemies. It's pretty easy to walk up that left little corridor. There's no enemies there. I kind of ad-libbed that little bit at the end, getting into the portal. I usually go right more. If you want to see my usual strat, check out my time attack time. But that works just as well too. It's not the scariest. It's not as scary as it seems once you've done it a few times. You mapped out all the enemies. But now we are at the auto scroll part. We are flying through the rings of, I don't know, outer space. Which, hey, I guess rings exist in outer space. Just flowing around. Yeah, not much to say about this one. In terms of the meta of this game, as you can see, I have about 200 coins. I'm only going to stop at the shop one more time. You probably could optimize this level to grab more coins, but I do not even spend all my coins. I end up using 7 total ghosts. One of them is a kind of last moment. I don't always need 7. Sometimes I can get by with 6. But yeah, if you want more coins, this would be a great place to route more in. If you actually want to figure out a route instead of just go with the flow. It's not something I would be interested in routing in the future, though. This boss fight has a longer intro than the others. It's not quite as difficult, though. There's fireflies everywhere, but since we have 12 lives, there's no real need to stop and grab any. We have a few of these buttons to get these electric wires out of the way. And we can move around some of these enemies. This I called the booger monster when I played this game when I was 4. I have no idea what to call it now. It's a plant abomination with multiple eyes. And the goal is to lower that inner wall so that these lasers fry it. After a certain amount of time, there will be some lights at right there. And we just need to step in these lights. Kind of like the octopus boss, you just need to get to 3 separate spots. Well, I guess with the octopus it's only 1 spot, but in this arena, just get to the spots and then it'll take damage. This was the one boss that I mentioned that the high jump is useful for. Not this round of attacks, but after we damage it one more time, those lasers will start spinning really quickly. The high attack is useful for, well, getting over the lasers. Not because the lasers are high, but because your super hop only goes the direction you are facing. So if you are unsure which direction the lasers are going to go, you can use the super hop, as you are about to see right now. I happen to be facing the correct direction to easily jump over them, but I still go with the super hop anyways. Just to be, I don't know, just to mix it up. I think most of the times I super hop in this game are just waiting around for cycles. Or you might also notice a lot of pivoting. I guess that is one movement that I technically did not go over already. Frogger can pivot 90 degrees, up, down, left, right. So you'll see a lot of button mashing when I have nothing else to do. And that is the last hit. Although it only took 3 hits, it kind of has 4 rounds. If you die in the 4th round, then you're reset all the way to the halfway point. But all the bosses are a little bit different with how their checkpoints work. This is kind of my own personal hell. This first level, not that bad. It's pretty consistent. You can go a lot faster at this beginning part, but you don't even have to because of the cycles. We're getting on these platforms here. And yeah, nothing much else particular to say about this. You can be a little quicker with this. I know Loco likes to use the ghost item here, but I don't think it really saves much time. It does take time to go back into the item shop and buy more of the ghosts. So those two following each other, those little bug things, they can slow you down a little bit. But thankfully we get them on a nice cycle. This is also supposed to be an Indiana Jones, you know, boulder following us type moment, where I suppose it is a lava waterfall. Lava fall? Following Frogger, but again, we're too quick. This level truly is my personal hell. This level takes a lot of practice. A lot of practice to get good at. I know Loka has a similar in-game time to me, but he does not use the ghost item. I use the ghost item on this to make the same cycle. Shit jumps are back, and worse than ever before. Loka likes to use the super hop to get on these platforms, which is probably more consistent, but I'm just used to using the regular hop at this point. Sometimes the platform might be too close to Frogger and he will go past it. Sometimes the platform's too far away to use the regular hop and he'll just fall to his death. I can't remember. I think we might see one of these deaths. One of these silly deaths here. We're past most of... Oh, I don't know. I guess we didn't get any. Never mind. This is the point where we use the ghost item. Those little fire blue things, I almost peed my pants there. But yeah, those fire blue things are very difficult to maneuver around, specifically because they give very little warning as to when they're about to light up. So if you do not have a ghost item, you're just going to have to know when each of them go on fire. Otherwise, you're going to get sent back decently far. Alright, on to 6-3. These little lanterns are very helpful in giving a cue as to when we can jump off these. Frogger does take fall damage, but only to a point. There's a few different visual cues you can figure out to have Frogger get by with as little damage as possible. This is definitely my most embarrassing level of this whole speedrun. This isn't even the bad part yet. I'm still able to make the cycle I'm normally going for because it just takes a while. This platform is the cycle I usually get, so I'm already tied with my best time after getting off that platform. However, I do a little bit of strange movement here. Not able to make that cycle. And we just kind of get behind. That enemy is really in the way. I could have just used the tongue item to eat it, but oh well. Yeah, that was a quick death. Not too bad, but we'll see a few more of those to come. These cars are kind of tricky sometimes. Just the way that they move in their cycles, they get really close to one another. Most enemies don't get too close to one another. Maybe on second viewing this isn't as bad as I thought it would be. But there is a death coming up right here, and I think another one. So definitely a highly improvable level. This speedrun is far from perfect. Oh, yep. There it is again. I think it'd be very realistic to PB by a minute or even two without changing any of my strats. And not even grinding too much, but you can't worry too much about time loss. Such is the ballad of speedrunners. The list of time losses they always give after a PB. You can't worry too much about those. We are going to have a rather large time loss here. This was the boss I was referring to earlier, which I would definitely like to have a ghost item for. This boss will send you all the way back to the beginning if you get hit. So we go all the way back here when we get hit on this second floor. On the first floor, all those buttons, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are always in the same position. However, on floors 2 and 3, these buttons are in randomized positions. So you kind of have to look around the map. I usually always go to the bottom left-hand corner of the map first, and then feel it out from there. Yeah, that attack is hard to get around sometimes when you're waiting for those platforms. Again, these buttons aren't in the same spot, but when we reach this next floor, they will be rearranged. The main difference between the first floor and the second floor is the amount of attacks this bat has, or the first floor, the bat just throws a single crystal, and then on the second floor, he kind of has a fully automatic fire attack. That was some lucky magnetic ability with the platform. I am thankful I did not go plummeting to my doom. This last phase has a very unique boss or attack from the boss. It is kind of a way to make sure you slow down a little bit. The bat will first throw a volley of fire 2 spaces away from Frogger, and then he will throw one more directly where Frogger stood when he initiated the attack. So, how to avoid this is pretty much stand still until after he throws his first set of fire. And then after that, move 1 space, exactly 1 space. And that is the safe way to deal with the bat. We are in our final world with 4 levels, the magic world. This level is pretty nice. I would say these first 2 levels are some of my favorites. This one used to be very much not one of my favorites for a mechanic that is about to show up. There are these fireballs that kind of like in 6-2 with those blue fire spots that just appear. These fireballs kind of appear out of nowhere sometimes. Once you get the cycle down, the rest of the level I enjoy enough to not feel dragged down enough by it. Yeah, we are already on the last world of the speedrun. I would say this speedrun is pretty on par with the previous world record. The previous world record had a game crash that occurred in the 4th magic level. Up until this point, we are probably closely tied. This crash I have experienced a lot on the GameCube version. I have not experienced it yet much on the PC port. I've only gotten a couple levels this far, so I don't have very many data points to compare with. This would be, I believe, this is another example of a level where here I think there's a couple less enemies, but it's not significant. There is a cycle that we need to make that is lenient enough we can kind of move around these umbrellas a little safer. As long as we get on this bed, we are making the fast cycle. I will say, this magic world does have a lot of possible crashes. On the Xbox version that I had when I was very young, grabbing this key very often would crash the game, although I have not played the Xbox version since. But I am not a computer scientist or anyone who would know anything about why the game breaks, so I will leave it at that. I will just make the frog move. At the end here, we kind of have to wait for the camera to move, but other than that, that's our 2nd magic level completed. This is our first, last regular level of the game. We start by dashing through these knights, and there is a kind of unique cycle over here with these switching blades. One strat that I'm surprised I didn't see in Loka's PB was the use of a ghost here. There is fire here that you normally have to wait a very long time to go out. However, with a, once again, use of a ghost, you can just walk right by it. This movement could probably be a little more optimized, but it gets the job done. Yeah, as we see, we have about 400 coins left, which 400 divided by 80, that should be about 5 more ghosts I have the ability to use. I guess I would just have to test out when to use those. Again, it does take some time to go to the shop and buy them, but I'm sure if you bought a lot of them at the same time, you could find some spots to fit more ghosts in there. Or maybe even some of the other power-ups. Or maybe even lives if you skip out some of the fireflies and find more places where deaths are used to speed things up. Again, I only do have 5 frogs left. The bosses are particularly interesting with deaths. There's a lot of strange things that happen when you die with bosses. Sometimes they're attacks that you kind of get your moment to attack. Sometimes you have to wait longer for those if you die. Sometimes they appear quicker. There's a lot unknown left with this game. But something that I do know is this boss used to give me nightmares as a child. It makes very interesting laughing noises, and the way you defeat it is quite cruel. How to defeat it, though, is just to stand on these little glowing spots and rotate these statues so that they all face the clown or the jester. And then it sends a shock of lightning right at it. This second phase, we will have the diagonal frogs, and then the last phase, it will be all 8. At the beginning, the clown only has the bouncy ball attack. Now, as you can see, he has an ice attack that follows you around a little bit closer. There's also a fire attack, which you really do not want to end up on a statue that you have not rotated completely. The fire attacks will leave a fire trace there for quite some time. So if you get the fire attack, usually just get off all the buttons and wait for him to attack you there. Like this. We already rotated that one all the way, so might as well just hold tight for a second and wait to move to the next one. There's also a attack we did not end up seeing here, which is I'm very thankful for. He makes a green cloud and creates a ghost. An enemy we did not see because we did not go down one of the firefight paths in Magic 3. I think this game does not have a lot of room for other categories. One category I might run in the future if I were to create another category would be all unique fireflies. That would seem to kind of add in all the extra paths. Kind of like 100% of the game, but there isn't really any other collectibles. And here we are, the final level. Console players, once again, might notice a, minor detail. The music is completely different. There's a quick death here. I don't think I've ever had that happen before, but didn't waste too much time. Again, there's a decent amount of deaths throughout this run, but I'm still proud of it nonetheless. I did stop at the shop real quick to buy one more ghost. That is useful near the end, and it is especially useful since I've died here and I am a little bit off cycle. In this final level, you take a little trip through each of the worlds we've been through already. We've been through the rainforest quickly, we went through the mountains, this is the magic, and there was the underwater portion already. Up next is the future, and then high tech, and last but not least, the volcano. Yeah, those are some unique enemies, along with these little frogs. A lot of unique enemies. Surprising for this last level up. Yeah, this is the point. These little lasers here is the reason we get the ghost for the last level. Now we do a little sequence break here by jumping right here, instead of going through all the falling platforms, and maneuver right through these brown bat looking things. The time ends once Frogger goes into this last little circle. And time. So that was Frogger Beyond in 55 minutes and 8 seconds. This last cutscene plays out. Frogger is congratulated by all the council members. All these people he went through trials for. Again, thanks to Loka for spending so much time with this game. It's clear that he really enjoys it and has spent so much time with it, and I'm glad he did. I'm standing on the shoulders of giants once again. I could not do this without him. I would probably have a still definitely above hour time with this. Yeah, so if anyone would like to beat this, this is a open challenge. But until then, I will let the rest of this cutscene play out. And thank you for watching.
And I'd like to give thanks for our home, Firefly Swamp. Yeah, you know, before today, all I could think about was having a big birthday party. But now I know. Every day's a party when you live here. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Really.
Well said, Frogger. And now, without further ado, as a token of our sincere appreciation, we present you with this ceremonial birthday cake. On this momentous occasion, to signify the great transition you have made, it is customary that every frog makes a special wish before blowing out the candles. Wish for whatever you would like, Frogger. When the candles go out, the next chapter in your young life begins.
A wish, huh? Does it really come true?
That, my friend, will be up to you.
Okay, here we go. Let's do this!